Today is Saturday, February 8th. By now, you've heard about the Chinese chatbot DeepSeek. It shot to the top of app stores and wiped out billions of dollars from the stock market as investors worried a cheap Chinese AI model could beat out American competitors. So how big of a deal is DeepSeek really? And how does China compare to the US in this AI race? Plus, why does all of this even matter? Bill Drexel is a fellow at the DC-based think tank, the Center for a New American Security. He specializes in artificial intelligence and the ongoing competition between the U.S. and China for global technological supremacy. Today, he joins us to talk about why DeepSeek caused so much anxiety for American competitors, how it compares to other chatbots like ChatGPT, and what the future holds for the AI battle between the world's top two economies. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Bill Drexel, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Great to be here.
So first, can you just describe how big of a deal do you think DeepSeek is? What was your initial reaction?
When it wipes out so much of the stock market, it's definitely a big deal. I would say that the perception, in a way, is more important than the reality. So what I think it really did was this was the wake-up call to American AI labs, to the American government, to the American stock market, that Chinese AI really can be competitive in a lot of ways that people didn't think it could be or didn't think it would be, at least for a long time.
And so how does it compare in terms of cost and capabilities when you're looking at DeepSeek versus American AI chatbots like ChatGPT and others?
There's a lot of speculation about, was it really this cheap to build? And did they actually have other chips they're not telling us about? But broadly speaking, even accounting for all those criticisms, we can say that this model was trained on a fraction of the cost of most comparable models. And the cost to operate the model is also smaller.
That's a big point for American companies because they're not really profitable yet, as it takes so much energy and money to run these AI systems.
That's right. And even before DeepSeek came along, this was an area of major insecurity for the American AI ecosystem. Companies like OpenAI have been raising tens of billions, aspirations even for hundreds of billions of dollars to build these models. And the claim has been they need these vast amounts of capital to kind of win the AI race. And then along comes DeepSeek, and it has created a very, very advanced model very cheaply comparatively. And that suggests that business models may have changed.
So what about data privacy and security? I know government phones are already told not to download DeepSeek. How relevant are those concerns? And what does that mean for the average American who maybe downloaded DeepSeek?
It's a great question, and one that has not gotten enough airtime. Really, a lot of the concerns parallel those that have been aired around the debate with TikTok, where depending on the personal information that you're sharing with this chatbot, that could very well be accessed by the Chinese Communist Party, but it logs all sorts of types of information. It even logs your keystroke patterns. And the irony, too, is that TikTok, they've gone through all of these sorts of gymnastics to try to distance themselves from the data privacy concerns we have with regard to the Chinese government. DeepSeek hasn't really done any of that. It's very direct. Your data is stored in China. We have to comply with Chinese law. And the Chinese law says the CCP can have access to the data. And it should be very concerning. I think at a minimum, for people who are already using it, they should really avoid sharing personal information with it. Long term, I think we're going to have to think about it similarly to how we've thought about TikTok and RedNote and other Chinese apps.
When it comes to government officials, it's kind of obvious that information could be used against them when it comes to politics. But explain for the average person why some of their personal information and that being in China's hands could be problematic.
If it's collecting information about someone when they're 15 years old, we don't know what that person's going to go on to do. There's a large number of people who might go on to hold sensitive jobs or need security clearance or what have you. So there's sort of that prevention aspect to it. But additionally, data is the lifeblood of the AI revolution. if we're really feeding China's data stores, that also can build their ability to sort of outcompete us. I wouldn't want my financial details, personally identifying information available on these databases that, yes, the Chinese government has access to, but may not be secure in other ways as well.
I know with TikTok, some of it has been, more information gives China leverage for propaganda as well, and to choose what information people are seeing. Is that a concern here too?
It's similar and different. So with TikTok, that's a platform that highlights news as well. And there have been some indications that the news it highlights is kind of stilted in the direction that's favorable to the Chinese government. There's a similar propaganda concern, or at least a censorship concern, built into DeepSeek. And that's in two ways. So one is if you ask it questions that the Chinese government would rather you not ask, it will not tell you the answer. It'll change the subject. It won't give you the information. So there's that very direct censorship issue.
Some people have reported asking about Tiananmen Square protests and it not giving answers. Is that an example?
Yes. But additionally, if we zoom out even further beyond the immediate product, the idea of this being openly available is so that other developers can tweak it, can adapt it, can build their own products on top of it. And one of the emphases of the Chinese government is that Chinese AI companies have to learn how to distill what they call core socialist values into these models. And if it's the case that DeepSeek is successful in having these models that other people are building on top of, there are ripple effects in other areas as well. If you're building an app on top of this model, the censorship and the kind of propaganda elements within it could manifest in the app that you're building on top of it.
Take a step back and tell us why the AI race matters. What are the potential implications for countries?
It's a generational technology, and you have more and more political and military leaders around the world recognizing that a lot of our economic power and military power hinges in the century ahead on how well we're able to leverage AI tools. So just to give an example, on military power, we're already using AI to get really good at targeting, sift through massive amounts of data to find what we need to find. But in the same way that airplanes upended a lot of the strategies of war, autonomous vehicles, drone swarms, these sorts of things may well be contributing a similar revolution to a lot of the kind of forms of engagement on the battlefield that we'll see. In contrast to airplanes or even nuclear weapons, AI can basically be integrated and is being integrated into nearly every aspect of war. So intelligence, reconnaissance, the list goes on. It's so general use that it can be an accelerant for pretty much everything on the battlefield. Similarly, economically, we're expecting really massive and compounding productivity gains from the use of AI in a really wide range of fields. So the country that leverages both the military and economic aspects is likely to surge ahead.
Still ahead, what about the potential downsides and risks of AI? Our guest explains what he's watching out for and why it shouldn't stop America's efforts. And he explains in surprising detail what's really at stake in this AI race. That and more coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Wildgrain. Wildgrain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas. Best of all, Wildgrain takes the hassle out of baking, since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup. That's right, I've grabbed a beautiful loaf of sourdough or some slow-fermented olive oil ciabatta, thrown it in the oven for 25 minutes or less, creating a delicious smell throughout the house, by the way, and put it out for family and friends to enjoy. So easy, yet such a delight. Not to mention their chocolate croissants, fresh pastas, giant chocolate chunk cookies, and more. So are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? Be sure to check out Wildgrain so you can begin building your own box of artisanal breads, pastas, and pastries. For a limited time, Wildgrain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/newsworthy to start your subscription. You heard me, free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/newsworthy. That's wildgrain.com/newsworthy, or you can use the promo code newsworthy at checkout. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Quince. Who doesn't love the good things in life? I enjoy treating myself to a little luxury here and there, though I also don't want to feel guilty for overspending. And that's where Quince comes in. Quince offers a range of high-quality items at prices within reach, like 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters from just $50. In fact, I recently got a wool quarter-zip pullover sweater that I adore. It's so soft, warm, and goes with everything. I can throw it on for everyday errands or go out to dinner in it. And you know I love my Quince washable silk tank. They even have 14-karat gold jewelry. And the best part, all of Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes those savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. So I love that. Give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/newsworthy for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/newsworthy to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/newsworthy. Now back to our conversation.
You talked a little bit about how the leaderboard is always changing, but how would you compare the AI capabilities of US and China right now, and what do you expect to happen in the near future?
Let's talk in two categories. If you want to talk about what's the most totally sophisticated, cutting-edge system, we are ahead, and I think our prospects are, in the short term, pretty good on that. If you want to talk about what's the commercial application use case, well, you might say that DeepSeek's actually ahead, and that's a worrying sign because you need to commercialize these products for them to be economically viable and to continue pushing the frontier. That said, one thing that we do have in our favor, and this is something that gets lost a lot, is the export controls we've placed on advanced chips are designed in such a way that the differential between our computing power and China's computing power should be growing as long as they're enforced well. That should continue to give us a significant edge in pushing the frontiers, and hopefully will also give us the edge in commercializing these tools more effectively long term.
What are your thoughts on the potential drawbacks of this?
It's generally true that when a new technology comes onto the scene and it hasn't had a lot of time to be tested and iterated on, it can tend to lead to crises, disasters. It's also simultaneously true that the net effect of automation in high-risk areas like healthcare or aviation has generally tended toward making these areas safer. So it's a mixed case, really. I think in the short term, there are a lot of things to worry about as this stuff is rapidly advancing and being rolled out in new areas. In the long term, it could actually make us safer.
But overall, do you think it's riskier not to advance AI as quickly as possible?
Integrating those concerns into our path forward is necessary because, kind of like nuclear energy, if you don't really have this safe, people aren't going to want to use it. And if there's a major incident, there's going to be backlash and then things move more slowly. But generally, yes, it's really important and it's necessary for us to surge ahead, particularly when so much is on the line with China. They have ambitions to lead the world militarily, technologically, in AI. And it is ultimately a brutal authoritarian regime. And if we leave this generation's most transformative technology to be shaped by the values of an authoritarian dictatorship, the results will be disastrous, not just for the United States, but for the broader world.
What is disastrous? What does that look like?
I'll just give you a top-level few examples. So one is that, generally speaking, Chinese AI is much more unsafe than American AI. It's a much more risk-friendly culture in terms of technological disruption, and they're proud of that. But to your last point, we could be seeing more cascading technological catastrophes in a world that's led by Chinese AI. More obviously, China is building out a really robust techno-authoritarian ecosystem, both at home and abroad. And so if they're able to lead and leverage AI in the service of greater state control and repression of populations around the world, it's got very direct implications on human rights and civil liberties everywhere. And the last one I'll say is AI is also unlocking a revolution in genetic engineering and genomics. I mean, that's a very morally, ethically fraught area. Gets into designer babies and eugenics and all these sorts of things. But if you look at the bioethics track record of China, it has a pretty chilling effect. And for them to be the ones pushing and pioneering new genetic engineering sorts of treatments and options is really concerning. So a lot of ways that things could go really awry in a world dominated by Chinese artificial intelligence.
So at this point, what are you most noticing or watching about President Trump's approach to AI, specifically with China or in general?
One, I'm watching how he's responding to this DeepSeek revolution in terms of what's our strategy going to be? Is it going to be to get the government involved? Is it going to be to further enable private companies? How is the American government going to work with our national labs on these sort of frontier technologies? The other thing I'm thinking about and the other thing that I'm worried about is, are we going to become too hyper-focused on these commercial chatbots? They are a really important part of this race, but AI is a really broad field. And a lot of this stuff actually requires different types of AI that aren't relevant to these chatbots. I would really like to see a very diversified approach where we're paying attention to all of these different kinds of AI and making sure that we get it right and that we're pursuing progress as fast and as responsibly as we can.
Final thoughts, or where you think things will stand in terms of AI competition, at the end of this year or in the next 5 years?
We are at peak freakout with regard to DeepSeek. And so I'm glad that maybe it's going to start abating, but we really need to translate that freakout into serious prioritization of AI because it is so important for so many things, politically, economically, and beyond.
Thank you to Bill Drexel for sharing his expertise and insights with us today. We have links to his work in today's episode notes. You can also read his recent article on what Trump's AI policy should be in Foreign Policy magazine. And thank you for listening. We'll be back again on Monday to give you all the news you need to know in just about 10 minutes. Until then, have a great weekend.